This is Join Us in France, episode 10. Hello, I'm Annie.
And I'm Elise, and we welcome you to the Join Us in France podcast, the show where we share the best of France.
Elise is a professional tour guide and art historian. And this is the podcast where we'll help you prepare your trip to France and tell you everything you need to know to have a great time in France. In this episode, we're going to talk about store hours, work hours, what you can find where, at what time. But first, this time I'm not going to forget the music. A little music to get us in the mood, and then we'll get right into it.
Hello, Annie.
Hello, Elise. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. It's going to be spring soon.
It's going to be spring soon, yes. The daffodils are starting to come out. Let's hope there is no freeze to take them away. Right. So, today, Annie, we're going to continue our face-off, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk today about stores and work hours and what you can find where, and the big one, when.
Yes, I'm definitely going to be the ugly American on this one because I couldn't stand how French stores were closed so much of the time, you know, when I first moved back to France.
When you first moved back to France, yeah. Well, of course, this is what we'll do. Let's work from the small out to the big. Maybe that might be the easiest thing to do. The general rule is, in almost all of the country, with a few exceptions, that stores are open from Monday through Saturday. And unless they are big stores, that is supermarkets or department stores, the basic working hours are 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Right.
Okay?
And they close at lunch.
Now, that's the thing.
That depends.
That depends. The old-fashioned stores or tiny stores in small cities and villages still do close in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
In basically your city centers everywhere, and certainly in Paris, no, that's no longer true. Stores do stay open all day long.
Well, it just depends if the store is big enough to have two employees. If they can switch off back and forth for lunchtime, they'll do that. But if it's such a small store that it's just the one person who works there, that person is going to close the shop and go do something, go have lunch.
That's true, except that I really honestly can't think of stores that I have been to in Paris, particularly in Paris, where that is now the case.
Right. I
think that maybe if you go to a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city that has no tourist attractions, so that people don't go to as tourists, then you will find perhaps small shops. For instance, a butcher shop, little shops that are food shops like that, catering shop or a butcher shop or a bakery.
Right. My bakery opens at 7 in the morning, but then they close at 1:30 or as soon as they run out of bread.
Right.
And then they won't open again until 4 usually.
Which is late.
Right. And then they close again at 7:38 or whenever they run out of bread.
Right. Now, I'd say that those are the stores that do still close midday, which is the stores that are food stores that service but are small.
Bakeries,
I don't think clothing stores in Paris do. I think you have to also make a difference between what happens in Paris and what happens outside of Paris.
Right.
Because Paris is really the big city. It's the capital city. And there are many people not only who work far from their homes, but do their shopping at lunchtime. So they are, in a sense, Americanizing because they're becoming more like people in other parts of the world where they actually have a shorter lunchtime and then they do other things during that time. They will run to the stores. So, but of course, what we are saying too is that with a few exceptions, nothing is open on Sunday.
Correct.
Now I'm not talking. We're not talking now about cafes, restaurants. That's another topic that we will, of course, get into. But we're talking about stores, places you go into shop for things. We're not talking about open air markets, which often, in fact, are on Sundays.
Yes.
However, there are a few neighborhoods, for instance, in Paris, and also I know that there are a few areas outside of Paris, like on the Côte d'Azur, where I knew that. There are a few areas of Paris, and there are some regions designated as highly touristy outside of Paris. That's actually an official designation. I mean, that's not
Is
the
it?
correct word. Yeah.
Oh.
I used to go visit someone who lived on the Riviera, the French Riviera,
Yeah.
in a zone where supermarkets and other stores that were basically big food stores were open 7 days a week.
Ah, okay, because...
And it was because it is the French Riviera. And so there are zones that have what they call a dispensation. That is, they don't have to abide by the labor laws.
Yeah.
And the labor laws here are such that if a store is open on Sunday, like in Paris and in other city centers, you often have the local little food market, very often called the Arab market, because it's very often people from North Africa who are the proprietors. Like in New York, it would be the Korean little market. And those stores tend to be open on Sunday. In fact, in Paris, if you arrive as a tourist or as a visitor in the city on Sunday morning, aside from going to a cafe or a restaurant, and not all of them are open on Sundays, the only place you would be able to buy anything would be, in fact, in one of these tiny little supermarkets or corner grocery stores.
Now, anymore, there are more and more of these Carrefour Express stores that do open on Sunday mornings.
They open Sunday mornings, yes.
Right, but by the time, if you fly in from the US or Canada, by the time you arrive in Paris, get out of the airport and into the city, those will be probably closed.
They will be closed, yes. It's very strange. What I was going to say is that even these little local grocery stores, they do have to close 1 day a week. I mean, the rule is very strict in France. So what happens is they take advantage of the fact that the other stores are closed on Sunday to get customers, and they themselves do have to close. So it's usually Monday or Tuesday that they close.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, this reminds me of the laws that still exist in Massachusetts, which are called the Blue Laws.
Okay.
And these are laws that go back, I believe, to the 19th century, when things were closed everywhere on Sunday because everyone was supposed to go to church.
Yeah.
Now, in France...
They don't go to church.
It's not because they're going to church. It's because the labor laws that were established starting in the 1930s gave workers the right to have a day off.
Right.
At that time, of course, it was very important because up until that point, they had worked 7 days a week, very long hours, and had no time off at all.
Right.
Now, this is sacrosanct in France. As you know, where we have this ongoing debate about whether stores should open on Sundays or not.
Right.
And I think this is where the American in me still comes out, because there are times when I would love to have Sunday to go shopping.
Right. But I think it's changing, because even where we live, which is outside of Paris, they don't... There are more and more stores that open on Sunday, at least half day.
At least half day.
Right.
But what we're talking about, you and I, we're now talking about little stores or the little mini supermarkets, because as you know, there are only 2 times a year when all stores are allowed to be open all day on Sunday, and those are the 2 weekends right before Christmas.
But I think that's changing. Even the big supermarkets, a lot of them are going to be open going forward, but it's slow to change.
It's slow to change, and of course there is a lot of interesting political debate. I mean, you know, the things that are debated in France are very, very different from the things that are debated in the United States as social issues.
True.
And here, there are a lot of people who really defend the idea that stores should be closed on Sunday because it gives everybody a day to be with their families.
Right.
And it's not even that, like in the States, if you are working in a store that is open on Sunday, you get a day off or 2, but it may not be during the weekend. Here, the idea is it is the one day of the week when everybody is home. There is no school. There is no this. There is no that.
Right.
Do sports. Do your garden.
Yep.
Because garden stores are the only stores
yes.
that are open all day on Sunday.
Even the very small. I live in a small village, and we have nearby a jardinerie. What do you call that? A nursery.
A nursery.
A small nursery. And they are open on Sunday mornings.
So it's like play in your garden on Sunday,
Right.
you know?
Sunday is rugby and garden.
Rugby, garden, take a bike ride, walk your dog. Well, you know about that, Annie.
Yes.
But don't go and do other things. And I think it's still this vestige of you're not supposed to work on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So first, obviously, a long, long time ago, I assume it was not to work on Sunday because you go to church.
Yeah.
And then in the 20th century, it became to protect workers so that they weren't overworked.
Correct.
So what you have is, for instance, if you go to the Latin Quarter place we've talked about, we're going
Yes.
to have lots of things to say about the Latin Quarter.
Yes.
It happens that it is one of the neighborhoods in Paris where a lot of things, including clothing stores, are open on Sunday.
Well, that's good to know.
So you can actually do clothing shopping. You can go to look for a few things. The bookstores tend to be closed because they run a regular work week, if you want to call it that. And I think it's up to the individual shop owner to decide whether they want to stay open on Sunday or not. Souvenir stores are basically the only stores that I know of that do stay open all day on Sunday.
Yeah.
The ones across from the Louvre, the ones in the Latin Quarter, probably in most cities, in the most touristy part of the city, those would be the stores that stay open.
Yeah.
But this is one of the things you have to get used to. If you run out of something on Sunday and you don't have a local little market nearby, you just have to wait till Monday morning.
Yeah. Well, and it's not the end of the world. I got used to it. But it's true that it's Sunday is such a handy day to go do your, things you're shopping, whatever you have to do for the week to get ready for the week. And here, nope, you have to do that on Saturday.
No, you have to do it on Saturday, which is why Saturday, everything is very crowded.
Yes.
Big stores, little stores, city centers everywhere.
Yes.
Everything is mobbed because if you've worked all week and you're too tired to go shopping at the end of your workday, then you go and do everything on Saturday.
Right.
And it looks like everybody's converged on the same place every time you go to a store on Saturday.
Especially if it's a sunny day. French people are very weather sensitive. If the weather is nice, they'll all come out and go downtown to go shopping.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun, but at the same time, it is a little bit crowded.
If you wanted to be there too, it's a problem.
Now, talking about store hours,
Yeah.
basically most stores run from 10 to 7 with or without a break during the day, depending on the kind of store and what neighborhood it's in. In large metropolitan areas, the bigger stores, of course, now stay open all day long.
Yeah.
There is usually one night a week when stores stay open a little bit later. And I noticed that department stores and the big supermarkets do stay open later than that. So you have some supermarkets that will stay open even until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And then big department stores usually have one night when they're open till 8 or 9.
Yeah, but not all of them, yeah.
No, not all of them.
Yeah.
I guess they feel that they get enough customers during the day. And the French are very fussy, about getting home on time to have their dinner.
Yeah.
So you don't stay open too late.
That can probably seem like a contradiction because French people are not religious usually, but they're very family oriented.
They're very family oriented.
So they and it's not just lip service. They really want to spend time on a Sunday or Saturday or however often they can to be with their kids and their siblings and whoever
Right.
that they have around. And so you cannot take it for granted that stores will be open nonstop. I think that's the take-home message is be prepared that if you're arriving on a Sunday in France, don't think you're going to rush out and buy a toothbrush because it's really simple, but you might not find a toothbrush till Monday.
You might not find it till Monday. There is, talking about that, let's talk a little bit about the idea of what a pharmacy is in France and what a parapharmacy is.
Yeah.
There are pharmacies in every city that stay open on Sundays, and they are the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
And they either have a special dispensation to do so, or they are designated in a kind of rotation to be the pharmacy that stays open on Sundays for emergencies.
Right.
Now,
and if a pharmacy is open or not because the cross...
green
cross outside of the pharmacy is lit if it's open. If it's not lit, don't walk the half a mile. It's going to be closed.
Right, and that of course is the we actually forgot to say that if you are looking for a pharmacy, that is how you find one anywhere in France. It is a illuminated green cross that usually flashes on and off. It's outside and it's very visible, and it's really great because that is the easiest way, even from a block or two away, to identify where a pharmacy is.
Yes, and French people are hypochondriacs, so we do have a lot of pharmacies.
You have a lot of pharmacies.
Yeah,
but
in the cities, they're everywhere.
A pharmacy. Okay, let's decide. I'd like to define a little bit what a pharmacy is for French people. A pharmacy is not a Walgreens or Walter Reed's. A pharmacy is a store where...
What's Walter Reed's?
On the East Coast.
Oh.
On the East Coast. It's the equivalent of Walgreens.
Okay.
Okay. It's your big drugstore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The pharmacy is, number one, the place where you go to fill a prescription.
Right.
And it is the place where you can go to get certain elements and certain things that are creams, things for the baby.
You mean lotion?
Lotions, creams. You have certain products that are basically high-end usually.
Yeah.
That are over-the-counter, but that are in a pharmacy. It's where you go to get aspirin, Tylenol,
Yep.
Your Advil. Even though you do not need a prescription for it, you cannot get any of those kinds of painkillers anywhere but in a pharmacy, and they are behind the counter for the moment, which means you have to ask a pharmacist or a pharmacist assistant to have the package.
Now, at my pharmacy, I go to two pharmacies. One of them, it's now, you don't have to ask. The aspirin and Tylenol and such are places where you can just grab a box and go pay.
Not in mine. Oh, that's interesting.
Right. So it just depends. It's the law has changed. The pharmacy can decide to display it where customers can grab one, but not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
So, but if you have, for instance, a blister on your foot and you need Band-Aids, you go to a pharmacy.
Yeah.
If you have a headache, a cold, if you need something for your sinuses, any of those things that are not necessarily prescription, you must go to a pharmacy. Those are the places you would go to get them. They have emergency things for babies, for baby food, for pets, for even things like flea powder and stuff like that. They have sun screen. They have products that are what we would call basically your good end beauty products, and a few other things. Sometimes sunglasses, for instance.
Yeah, reading glasses.
Reading glasses, the non-prescription ones.
Right, you can get those there. And I would say if you get a nasty blister or something like that, go to a pharmacy and show it to the pharmacist. They are very, very well trained to give you advice. And a French pharmacist they're going to be used to seeing cuts and bruises and things like that, because French people will show up at the pharmacy and say, look in my mouth, I have this sore.
That's right.
What can you get me to fix this sore?
I even do that.
Yeah. And then the pharmacist will say, well, that you need to go see a doctor, or here, try this.
Right. They have a kind of function as a doctor's assistant in a way, because if you know your pharmacist, and of course this is for people who live in a neighborhood and go to the same place all the time, they get to know you, and they have there's an attitude in France which is kind of interesting, because it means you don't have to worry about making an appointment if it's something that seems to be minor, and they will tell you if they think it's something that you need to see a doctor about. So it's very, very good. Yeah. Now, what you can't get in a pharmacy are all the things you get in the big drugstore type places in the States. So you cannot get greeting cards. You cannot get candy.
Can't get 10 packs.
You cannot
get 10 packs.
In mine, you can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now that's
but not every brand.
Not every brand. No.
Okay. I know what you mean. They do have the one brand. My pharmacy does the same thing. They have the one. Sorry, men. Apologies, but we have to discuss these things. It's important. They have the one brand of hygiene products,
right?
Feminine hygiene product, but just the one brand. And if you don't like that one, don't go there.
That could be because that's the provider, that they buy them. They
have this OB stuff.
OB stuff, exactly. Yeah, but
don't like those.
There is a whole range of products that you would not go to a pharmacy for.
Right.
you go to a supermarket for.
Right.
Obviously, beauty products, you don't buy them in a pharmacy if you can help it because they're far more expensive.
Yes.
Everything from...
They're a little higher grade, I'm told.
Sometimes, but if you go to a basic good supermarket chain like Monoprix,
Yeah.
which happens to be one that I go to when I'm doing work in Paris, they have everything.
Yeah.
And they have everything you can possibly want, and they have really, really, really a good choice. And you get all the beauty products. You get all of the sanitary napkin types of products. You get shampoo. You get all of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And literally, it is less expensive.
Right. And if you happen to need toothpaste or something like that, and you go to a pharmacy, they will sell you toothpaste, but it's usually more expensive.
More expensive.
And it's usually more medicated toothpaste. It's going to be the stuff with the fluoride, the extra fluoride, or whatever.
Right.
So if you can wait until you go to a grocery store, that's a better place.
Yeah, it's a better place. And since most of the time, as a visitor, the tendency is to need things that are simple, like a Tylenol or Band-Aids for your blisters, or maybe you forgot your shampoo or your toothbrush. Those are things, if you can wait, to definitely buy them in a supermarket, because there's always a section in the supermarkets that have those kinds of products.
Right. The other thing to mention is that Americans are used to, if you're used to traveling to Mexico or places like that, where if you need a prescription medicine that you forgot, you can just go to the pharmacy and insist. In France, it won't happen.
It won't happen, no.
The pharmacist will not dispense medications for which you need a prescription if you don't have a prescription.
That's right.
Now, there are some exceptions. If you're diabetic, for instance, and you run out of, I don't know, needles or something, they will give you one needle or whatever you need to tie you over until you can see a doctor. But they will not dispense, pain medication other than Tylenol and, things like that. Don't even try. I had a visitor who tried to get anxiety medication from a pharmacist. And, he was upset that the guy, last time I was in Mexico, they just sold it to me. I'm like, it's not going to happen.
No, it won't happen.
They have licenses that they have to protect, and they're not going to... They'll send you to a doctor, and then you can...
No, just as an aside, it's very interesting to know that this is the same in Italy. In Italy, basically, the concept of what a pharmacist is exactly like it is in France. And again, it's not a place where you can have a prescription filled.
Right.
So those are things that people should really know about.
But they do have, if you run out of a medication that you take frequently, they do have kind of equivalent medication. So if you have the name of something and you're not sure if it's going to be prescription or not prescription in France, just show it to the pharmacist and they can...
Yeah, they can usually help. But it is true that if you are traveling for a short time and you have prescription medicine, make sure you have enough for the whole length of your stay, because it will avoid having any problems that might make things very uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
Right? Or even worse than that.
Yeah.
Business hours. Banks in France are open usually from 9 to 5. However, there are a lot of banks that have one half a day closed, often a Friday, and in that case, they're often open on Saturday mornings. If they are closed Friday afternoon, or if they're closed Monday morning, very often that means that it's a branch of a bank that will be open Saturday from 9 to 12. Banks don't close earlier than 5. The ATM machines, of course, are always available, inside or out. But they are open what we would call regular office hours.
Right. Now, if you do use ATM machines, they will not charge you fees for using the machine, unlike in America where they can charge you whatever they want. But they will charge you, what do you call that? Commission for dollars to euro kind of thing. But it's usually not a bad rate. I think it's a good idea generally to not show up with, if you're going to need $1,000 worth of cash, don't put $1,000 in your pocket.
Now, there's part of this that, of course, I agree with you. There's something to know, though, and this is from a lot of experience. If you have your money in a major bank in the United States, now the fact is that all of this is true except apparently, I just found out recently, Citibank.
Okay.
Any other major bank in the United States will have an affiliate bank in France.
Okay.
And if you use that bank, there is no charge
Oh, okay.
for withdrawal of money.
But you need to figure out which one it is.
But you need to know which it is. And that is very easy to find out by calling your bank before you leave or using an 800 number. And what happens then is, especially if you are in a big city like Paris, there will always be a branch of whatever bank that is within a walking distance from where you are. And so it is good to know because very often you avoid any kind of service charges at all by doing it that way.
Right. And generally speaking, I think it's best to withdraw with your ATM card. It has to be an ATM card with a 4-digit
With a 4-digit PIN number, yes.
Right. And you have to know your 4-digit PIN, obviously.
Obviously.
And you withdraw however much cash you need for the next couple of days. Don't walk around with piles of cash.
No.
And obviously, a French ATM is going to spit out euros, not dollars.
That's the point.
Yeah, and that's the whole point.
And I absolutely agree with you. Do not bring traveler's checks. They are of no use whatsoever anymore. And the best exchange rate is through the ATM machine.
Yeah.
And it is the best way to avoid having problems and make sure when you travel that you inform your bank what country you're going to be in so there is no problem with the card being refused in the ATM machine.
Yes.
But basically, France is a country where almost everything, even down to a few euros, can be used. You can use a bank card for. You don't have to worry about it. There are some small stores like clothing stores where they'll tell you 10 or 15 euros is the minimum. But most people basically don't even walk around with very much cash anymore.
But there's one thing that I want to make sure that we explain. The French use ATM cards and credit cards with a chip in it. Okay? And because we have this chip, the way we use our cards is we don't swipe it. You push it in the machine and then you enter your PIN. Some storekeepers are not, but those credit card machines can all also do the swipe thing for when they have international cards. But some of the store owners or attendants they don't know how to handle a card that doesn't have a chip. So it is possible. It's getting more and more unlikely, but it is possible that you'll go to some small store and they have no idea how to handle your swipe-only card.
Now, I'll tell you something that I just discovered recently. If they don't know how to swipe the card, even a card that has the chip or not, if you put it in the slot the way we do here, you don't have to put in a code. It will register that way, pull it out, and then you sign it like the receipt like the way you would in the United States.
Something that just occurred to me. How do you get gas at a French gas station if you don't have a chip card?
That's right. In fact,
I don't know how you would do that.
Well, that I'm not sure, but I know I've had the experience of putting the card in with
because I have a Capital One card that I use. I'm gonna try and get gas with my Capital One card to see if it works, and then we'll report about that on a different podcast. Because that would be really, if you rent a car and you need to get gas, how do you do it? It's because here you put your card in, it reads the chip, and
that's it, and that's it,
yeah.
And you're good. You're good for go. And I just want to mention one other thing, because if ever, as a traveler, you need to go to an administrative office in France for passport questions, for a paper if you're thinking maybe I'd like to buy an apartment here and live here for a while. Just generally speaking, administrative offices close at 4:30.
Yeah.
They do not close at 5. And because they close at 4:30 and because it's France, the workers are out the door at 4:30.
Yeah.
So you have no chance of getting anything done in those last 15 minutes. And it's best
in the door already
to know what times they are available. And if possible, if you can make an appointment ahead of time, if you can't, know that the best thing to do is show up at least an hour and a half before closing time. So basically their hours are 9 to 4:30, which is actually shorter than bank hours.
You know,
France.
there's one more thing, going back to the stores, that I did not forget, that I forgot to mention. If you happen to go to a major supermarket, they all have what's called vigiles, which are people that watch over, they look out for thieves. They look out for, and they don't have a lot of video camera, but they do have a lot of people who walk around looking for pickpockets and other kind of theft.
By the way, Annie, it can be very intimidating, when you walk into a store and you see they're usually really big guys. They're kind of the bouncer style from discotheques, that's usually who vigils are. And they all have these walkie-talkie things, look like Secret Service people, hanging out of their ears.
No guns, though.
No guns, but
sometimes big dogs.
They can be a little bit aggressive sometimes, and they do walk around. And of course, you have this in all supermarkets, all major stores of any kind. The bigger the department store, the more there are. The fancy chic shops in parts of Paris will have them outside. They will actually eye you and decide whether or not they want you to even walk in the store sometimes. So it is a little bit strange, and it can seem very, very strange to suddenly feel like somebody's following you around.
I had friends visit from the U.S. who were asked to open their bag. Entering because they had purchased a few things and they were walking in with big bags full of things. You don't do that in France. You stop at the entrance. There's going to be somebody who will.
They check your bags.
Yeah, they check your bags, and they will put like a sticker on it, meaning that you paid. You're not a thief or whatever. So it's a little bit. I mean, I'm assuming that most of you visitors that are only here for a few days, you're not going to be doing this sort of thing. But it is possible that they will stop you. Don't take offense. It's just that theft is a problem,
I talking about that. It's theft is a problem, but it is also, unfortunately, historically, not just about theft. It's about the fact that in the 1980s and a little bit in the 1990s, there were some attacks in various stores.
Yeah.
And so it is a way of checking to make sure that you're not carrying in what seems to be any kind of suspicious package.
Yeah.
We're not trying to make people paranoid, but it is true that unlike stores in the States where I guess you mostly have video surveillance, here it's people surveillance.
Yeah,
There is some video surveillance, and of course there is more and more out in the streets. But basically, again, mentioning this Monoprix in the Latin Quarter that I go to a lot, there's one at each door.
Yeah.
And there are two that wander around, even in the supermarket part,
Right.
and you kind of go, what are they doing?
Well, like if they see somebody who's walking in who's had a bit too much to drink, which happens, they just follow them around or don't let them in at all. It's that kind of security. So
right.
They've never bothered me at all, but I'm sure I've seen them stop my American friends, but I think it was mostly because they had these big bags and they didn't know that they were supposed to check in at the door before you enter a supermarket. If you go to because big malls in France all have a big supermarket.
Right.
So if you do some shopping in the mall and you try to enter the supermarket with stuff that you bought in the mall, they're going to want...
They'll seal it.
They'll want to seal it in a plastic bag. You keep it with you. That's not a problem. But they'll want to seal it. That way they don't have to check you at the end.
Now, stores on the Champs-Élysées don't do that, but they will sometimes ask you to open the bag and
look,
check.
Yeah.
Now, just one more thing about stores.
We're never going to be done.
We're going to be just
this
one.
Is gonna be a long
one more
episode.
One more quickie. This is very, very important. There are no toilets in most of these stores.
Ah, yes.
This is a real problem. In malls, there are usually...
The mall has a bathroom area.
One for a whole mall.
Yeah.
But even major supermarkets don't. The only stores that do are the big department stores.
Yeah.
And usually, of course, everybody knows about big department stores. You have to figure out which floor they're on and all of that. But there is no such thing as this accommodation to a general public if you're going to go into a medium-sized store or even into a relatively big supermarket. It is just not what is done.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, this is not the place you would go if you have this kind of need
Yes.
at the last minute.
Yep.
Stores are for buying things and leaving.
Yeah. That's pretty much. But any establishment that serves food and has sit-down tables has, by law, the obligation to have a bathroom.
Yes, but they don't have an obligation to let you in unless you buy something.
That's right. So the best place to go if you need a bathroom break in France and you don't know where to go buy a Coke, go buy a cup of coffee, and use their bathroom. Yeah.
So, but basically, what we're saying then is that the French are probably a little bit stricter and have a little bit more of a restrictive time frame, and also a bit more restrictive, I would say, about the choice or the range of products, because they designate things more specifically than I think most stores do now in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other thing to know is that if you're in a big city like Paris, there's a good chance that things will be open all day, but definitely not once you leave Paris.
That's right. Okay, Lise. We got to wrap it up.
We got to wrap it up,
This is
Annie.
going to be a long
I got to go
episode.
home and go shopping.
Thank you again for listening to us. We enjoy hearing from you. So if you would like to leave us a review in iTunes, we love that. You can also write us comments.
Ask questions.
You can even send us a voicemail. If you go to the website, there's on the left-hand side, there's a leave us a voicemail tab, and you can talk to us, and we'll play it on the show. It would be really fun to have some of those. So go to joinusinfrance.com. And thank you again for listening, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Next time.
All right, au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye.